welcome to the first episode of Albion Cast. Today we have with us Demon Ender, or Phytes. Say hello.
Hey everybody, Demon Ender, Phytes here.
We have Hannibal from Aegis.
Hey guys, I'm a War Master from Aegis for the first test. War of Albion, I'll let someone else talk now.
We have Dreamhawk from Titans.
What's up guys, I'm Dreamhawk. I'm one of 7 of Titus Council and I've been around since the second alpha.
Yeah.
We have Torque from Aegis.
How's it going, guys? I'm Torx, West Frost Mage NA, Aegis console member.
Alright, we have Klein from KDS.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm an officer of KDS, mainly dealing with political things, and this is my first test, so it's pretty interesting, but having fun so far.
And we have from SBI, Safiana, Forum Moderator.
Hi guys, I'm Safiana. I'm an officer with conflict. Please excuse the Oscar the Grouch voice. I've got a cold.
All good, all good. Alrighty guys, so let us begin. So we're going to go over our patch notes first from this most recent update, Brutus. The first weapon we're going to be talking about is Arcane Staff. So Phytes, would you mind giving us an overview of that?
Yeah, so the Arcane Staff this patch got some nice changes where the spells got moved around a little bit. Some Arcane Staff users not a big fan, but others do enjoy them. The shield is still what a lot of players like to call cancerous in its current state. Because it does ignore armor and magic resist buffs before taking damage, so a lot of times it can only take about 1 hit of damage before it dissipates, but it did get a cast time reduction, energy cost reduction as well, and then the strength got increased by 30%. Very, very nice. The Frazzle got moved to its W slot instead of being on its Q. That was probably the biggest hit on that staff, because now you can't do damage while having Power Beam or Cleanse or Purge on your staff as well. So a lot of Arcane Staff users not very happy with that right there. But their Cleanse did get a AoE to it, so that's a very awesome change for Arcane Staff users. And then energy cost reduction on the Arcane Orb, which not a lot of 0.1 Arcane Staff users out there right now, but if you are using that, I guess you were pretty happy to see that happen. But mainly the motivating cleanse is the biggest hit for the Arcane Staff.
Well, maybe we'll see some 0.1 Arcane Staffs with that energy decrease.
Probably
Vortec
not.
just got here. Vortec is a GM of Aegis. Vortec, say hi.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Alrighty, and Hannibal, you wanted to talk about the Arcane Staff as well?
Yeah, just one quick little note. I came into this test actually wanting to go Arcane Staff. I thought it was probably the most powerful staff in the game. It's the most underutilized staff when it came. It's just full utility. I think this actually kind of balanced it in a lot of different ways. Now you do have to make a lot of hard decisions on what kind of Arcane player you're going to run. As Mike said earlier, the new cleanse, the AoE cleanse, is absolutely insane for group fights. However, because of the fact that the Frazzle was changed to W slot, PvP viability went down slightly. Now you have to choose between damage, or you doing damage, or someone else doing damage. Honestly, I like the changes. I know most Arcane Staff users are not going to like them, but I think this staff came more in line with other staffs in the game in terms of its viability.
Yeah, definitely. I feel it did need some changes. Alrighty, so then we will be moving on to our next weapon to talk about, and we're going to be talking about the Axe line with Dreamhawk.
Oh, what's up guys? I'm an axe user. I can use the Great Axe or the Scythe 7.3. The Heavy Smash energy cost got increased from 2 to 13, which isn't that bad for the axe or the Scythe. Or if you're using like the one-handed axe, I guess when you get to like tier 6 or 7, you get the ability. The damage got increased, which is really good. So if you want to burst like a light target down, then I guess that's the weapon for you in terms of like the axe tree. The Vampiric Strike, the energy cost got reduced from 18 to 16, which is good for the one-handed. And I think that the one-handed axe is actually really underrated in terms of duels, and maybe you can season into a GVG fight, but I guess it depends on your playstyle, and if you get focused, then it's not going to be that useful. The rending swing, that's for the scythe. I think it got nerfed really hard, so scythe users, you might have difficulty like seeing any damage with your E. But apart from that, your heavy smash is your W and your heroic smash is your Q. You can still dish out a lot of damage if you get to the higher tier. Like the lower tier, like 4.3 or 5.3, you're not going to really see that much damage. But when you get to like 6.3, 7.3, and 8.3, then you can see damage from your W and your E. And that's about
Alrighty.
it.
Well, that's a good overview of that. Now let's move on to the next one, the bow. We'll be hearing about that from Torx. I know a lot of you probably want to hear about the flatline bow. So, Torx.
Yeah, it's gotten I wouldn't want to say a huge buff to a point where it's broken. A lot of people are saying that it is pretty powerful with a 30% increase in damage and pretty much flat outline damage increase in it. Well, take into account that the explosive shot did get a bit of a damage nerf, and you're liable to a point where as soon as you do that beginning burst, you're out of the fight until your cooldowns come back up, and those are about a minute cooldowns. So when it comes down to the overall damage of it, yes, it has a really nice burst for a long period of time, but it dies out just like a Frost Death would if you run out of mana. But the 30% increase in the auto attack, it's huge. It's not game breaking though. So after trying it for a little bit, it has as much damage to be compatible in GVG. So I would consider swapping out that crossbow for a base tier warbow. I mean, on base tier single bow. But when it comes down to the warbow stuns, they have suffered some nerf. The stun is still pretty good, but not seeing much change as far as the overall damage to it. Now for the 4.3, the volley increase in damage is huge against Zergs, and you're going to see a lot of, in my opinion, are going to start seeing a lot more in open world PvP with the longbow.
Yeah, I've seen that personally a lot. Okay, so moving on to the next one, we have Phytes. Let's hear you talk about curse staves and the change with your 8.3 and soon to be 6.6 demonic.
Yeah, so the curse staffs, very minor changes this patch compared to what we've seen in previous patches where curse staff, the flavor of the month, the super OP got brought down in line to where it needed to be brought down, and now there's just some small balancing changes across the line. The Desecrate, which is the AoE stun, popular from Vet and B, rolling out in Hawthorne. Vet, and we see you. Keep it up. Keep killing everybody. We need to get those gear prices shooting back up. The market is crashing. Keep killing people, trashing that gear, man. We appreciate it. But the mana cost got reduced on the Desecrate, which is the AoE snare. The Armor Piercer got a reduction to its armor and magic resist values, which it's still very, very strong. Don't go dropping that in your GVG groups to start running the Drain or to run the Desecrate. Keep running the Armor Piercer, guys. Still insane for your team comp there. Death Curse, energy cost reduction. Not a big change for that one, but it's going to help you throughout a GVG to keep your damage up. And then the Field of Death on the 0.3 staff got a damage increase by 20%. Still wasn't doing a lot of damage. Still doesn't do a lot of damage, but it was nice to see. I'd like to see some more changes made across the staff, but for now, I like where the weapon's at. I am grinding out that 6.6. Can't wait to get it.
Yep. Okay, and Hannibal, what do you want to say about the curse staff?
I've been playing curse staff to see this test. It's like, I think the most important thing that Phytes said is that the Arm Piercer, although it got nerfed, still very, very good. I still think it's the best skill on the W line. I think it needs another nerf in line. At the same time, I think the over nerfed Q, it's still over nerfed a little casting range. So I would gladly trade a buff on the Q for a nerf on the W, the Armor Piercer. Also, the Field of Death, the new damage increase of 20% is actually very noticeable, very nice.
Yeah, as a fellow curse staff player, I love having the two curse, one with the armor pierce and one with the channel beam. The damage you can get from that is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, but with that being said, let's move on to our next item, and that will be daggers, which will be talked about by Dreamhawk.
Yes, the daggers. I personally love the daggers. For the daggers, for the patch notes, like the dash got reduced from the cooldown got reduced from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, which is really good. Right, if someone's escaping you, plus you got the brand new indicator range from the brand new interface, which is good that you can catch up to people and you know your distance and your limit. The poison coating, that's on the one-handed dagger. The energy cost got reduced from 18 to 15. I'm not sure if anybody uses the one-handed daggers, but I don't think is that viable. The slit throat max damage, which is good. It's also from the E for the daggers when you apply your 2 stacks. So you do a lot of damage now because your damage got increased by 14%. And since disembowel attacks no longer shortens channel time, so disembowel is the E on the claws. So before, when you root someone and let's say you're doing PvE, a mob attacks you, it shortens your root timer, but now it doesn't shorten it. You don't get interrupted. And I think the daggers are really strong. I just want I just hope the devs add a slow to the daggers so they can become viable, because apart from the burst damage, you really have no chase potential, apart from relying on your teammates to get the 2 stacks. And even then, there's a lot of spells that people can use to just counter your E, like Ice Block or Blink, or they can even just sprint away because you already casted all your cooldowns on them. But apart from that, I think the daggers are still where they are right now, and the 14% increased damage just made them slightly a bit stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, I really was hoping to see a lot more from daggers, especially this test. I mean, that's been my favorite weapon in every single game. I was just really disappointed when I found out it just really wasn't GVG viable.
Yeah.
I was just pretty upset to find that out, but hopefully in the future they can make them bit more.
They could add more spells to it to make it more versatile. Because right now people are not really I guess few people are sticking with the daggers. More people are going with the claws because the claws have a root, right? And the daggers, as I said, you can't really you have a lot of damage if you can get the 2 stacks, but there's so much ways people can counter you. With the ice block, and they can just sprint away, or they can even just do more damage before you can even get your slit throat on them.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so now let's have Klein give us the rap on Holy Stabs, the new highest DPS weapon in the game.
Well, yeah, Holy Staff's definitely the most interesting change this patch, in my opinion. Right off the bat, the smite got changed from slot 1 to slot 2. I've been looking for this change since the first week, right when I picked up a Holy Staff. I thought, hey, I can't farm, I can't really do anything with the smite on the first slot because you lose out on your heal if you take it. So it is really nice to see it on slot 2. I was really happy about that. I saw the damage increase by 20% and I was really confused because I don't think it needed that at all. I think their approach on that was trying to make it so you can solo farm and making it a little bit funner or easier for Holy Staff users to play the game. But I don't think that was the right way to go around it at all. I think they need to find some other workaround with it, try to make it so healers get more fame in groups. They already said that they want to give groups more fame when playing together, etc. But I don't think giving Smite a 20% damage increase was the right way to go. I like to show it off for a second, Phytes, if you could show in game. I'll do a trinket really quick. Trinket, just don't attack me. And yeah, I can just kind of show off the damage really quick.
I could attack you, you'd still probably beat me.
Probably.
Not with that stuff, I don't believe so.
Well, it's the fact that it's
you
now have your
506
full heal.
damage.
I mean, he has his full heal. So running this with a nature staff or with another healer, I mean, he has the possibility. I mean, he's just running Casper, right?
Yeah, oh no, I'm using damage
Might be
passes
rolling
and
holy
then,
boys.
Tier
But,
7
I mean-
omelet, so I can use I
Might
can
be
have
rolling
optimal
holy
casting speed,
boys.
so it does
Yeah, if
open
he
up
does-
a window of opportunity for you to bring a nature staff healer into a GVG and possibly a holy staff DPSing on the side. It is an option. It's something I definitely want to test and look into, but haven't done yet. Other than that, the other holy staff changes: Desperate Prayer, energy reduction by 3. I don't think that was really needed at all. It's nice to have, thanks, but wasn't needed. The whole Holy Explosion change, I've said this time and time again, 4.2 in Holy and 4.3 Holy are just never going to see a place in GVGs because you need a tome if you're going to heal, in my opinion, unless you're using Nature Staff. So the biggest reasons you'll never see 4.2 or 4.3 in GVG holy-wise is you need a tome and you need Desperate Prayer. Two very important things.
Have you tried any of the point two?
Hmm?
Have you tried any of the point two line by any chance?
Oh yeah, I've tried the Great Holy Staff, and it was a decent change, but it's nothing that would make me go, wow, this is great. I'm gonna switch to this staff. It's not really viable.
Okay, so moving on from here, we will be having Torx talk about the biggest nerf I've ever seen in this entire game, the Glacial Staff.
Yes.
Oh, my baby got nerfed. Alright, so I mean, to be honest with you guys, the Glacial Staff is one of those weapons that at the moment is the Fire Staff of last season, or last alpha, where SI just doesn't know what to do with it. It does a lot of damage, and what it brings to the table is it's crazy. Like, I agreed with the nerf, with the damage stuff. Yeah, 100% agreed. And I could still I was able to still deal with that. With this new patch, they just changed the playstyle of it. I'm still gonna stay Frost because I like the playstyle of it. But the damage nerf, it's not there. If you're looking to fill a DPS role in any GVG or in any open world scenario, you're just not going to cut it. There's so many other weapons that do way more damage than you do. The one reason you would be bringing a Frost Staff is for the CC and the crowd control potential, to a point where you could slow down groups of people, not just one individual like you used to with the first introduction or the first remake of the staff, but now you're able to slow multiple people at the same time. And I don't know if a lot of this stuff is intentional or not, but with the Glacial Staff, there has been instances where even though they are out of the Glacial Circle, the buff gets reapplied to them. And for example here, Hannibal, do me real quick. I'll just go ahead and show it off a little bit on the stream. Hannibal, let's set the duel.
Alright, I got you. I'm busy with these viewer questions.
Yeah, they have put Glacial into a spot where it's a really difficult weapon to use, but at the same time, the mana cost of it is just unexistent. So,
See,
for
I
example,
can't move right
Hannibal
now.
there can't move, and that'll be a group effect. So he's out of the Glacial there, but the Glacial is still ticking on him, unable to move, and that's just the Glacial by itself. But as you can tell, the damage is really low, from a 150 to freaking unbelievable 74 per second tick. So yeah, the damage is not there, but the utility has gone up by tenfold. So if you guys were looking to run a heavy CC comp or a heavy CC weapon, the Frost Staff is still one of the best, in my opinion, overall weapons out there, for its ability to slow everybody. But damage is non-existent. As far as the other staffs, I have been playing with the .2 staff. That does insane amount of damage, and it's very underwhelming. At first, I thought it was going to be very underwhelming, but after seeing some videos online, especially Dagger running with the .2, I tried it out, see what it was about, and it does quite a lot of AoE damage. The fact that the hail could proc on one person up to 4 times, or each drop being about 220 damage on a 5.2, I'm sorry. It's huge on team fights, on GVGs, and it's a huge gap closer. As far as the base tier one, I wouldn't really recommend it for open world or GVGs, just because the burst damage that it's supposed to do, it's not up there yet, and the mana cost for the damage, it's non-existent, to a point where you can only get about 2 combos off with any of the given staffs, and you're out of mana at that point. So my take on the current Glacial Staff or Frost Staff.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you've been playing that for absolutely ever. You've been playing that every test, right?
Yeah, it's changed a lot, and I like some of the changes. I don't like some of the other changes. I still feel like it does need some balancing still, but overall, it's my favorite weapon just because I like to kite a lot, and this weapon is just unbelievable for that.
All right. Well, that's stance on Glacials. Now let's move on to Phytes. Phytes, would you mind talking about fire staffs for us?
Yes. So one thing I want to bring up about fire staffs is people have seen the glacial staff and what it can do in these dungeons where it can solo and it can duo dungeons, and I just want to point out that the fire staff is, even before this patch, is still able to duo the dungeons and even solo the dungeons, the tier 7 dungeons, on its own. I'm not going to go into how. I'm just going to let y'all know that it is possible. If you want to figure it out, level up that fire staff instead of the frost staff now if you're trying to do that solo farm. Fire is amazing.
Agreed.
So yeah, still has the potential. The fire wave energy cost increase, flame walls, wall of flames energy cost increase. So pyroblast, the cast time got reduced, the damage got reduced by 15%. That's on the 0.1. I don't think pyroblast 0.1 trees. I've seen a couple bring it into GVGs and they've been pretty non-existent. Meteor damage got increased by 2%. Big whammy right there. And the energy cost got increased as well. Contagious Fire, probably the best change here. Energy cost reduced by 1 and damage increased by 9%. And the Contagious Fire also got fixed in the patch before Brutus, I believe. Is that not correct?
I think that's right.
The dot actually starts to spread now, so
Yeah.
we've actually seen that in GVGs over the past 2 weeks, and especially now that people are getting it up to higher tiers. I've seen a couple 7.3s on the server now, and the damage on that is insane. And I'm debating on the new comp that I want to build, if I want to bring in a second curse staff to run with me, or if I want to bring in a fire to have a different kind of approach to the GVGs. But definitely very viable for GVGs right now if you are looking for a DPS weapon to run.
Yeah, actually, I just grabbed one out of my bank real fast, so we can show you. I actually use this in open world a lot, and it is very difficult, especially in large groups. Somebody overextends, gets it cast on them. They have nowhere to go except into their group. Stepping just into this applies like the entire duration of the debuff, not only where it is on him, but the entire duration of the debuff gets reapplied. So I mean, if you look, he's in 4-3, and I brought him 700 damage. So that is quite substantial when you think of that in terms of a 20-person team getting hit by that all at once. Alright, so that was Phytes on Fire Staff. And next we will be hearing from Klein on the Nature Staff, one of the biggest updates, the God tier update.
Yeah, right next to the Holy Staff, in my opinion. God tier update of Nature Staff. Poison Thorns, I mean, right with the Holy Staff, you can solo farm now, so have fun with that. You just put the ticks on yourself, put the ticks on the mobs, run around a little bit, you can solo farm. Rejuvenation, got its own little healing buff by 4%, cooldown reduction, energy cost reduced as well. The Cleanse Heal, I think, is one of the biggest things. It's AoE now. The cooldown is reduced from 15 seconds to 10 seconds. I think it's bigger for open world PvP, definitely, or even PvE, just for stun purposes. I don't think it's something that'll make a big difference in terms of GVG, since it's only for movement and bearing effects. So something definitely that will be good in open world. I don't think it will change GVGs much, but it really depends on the comp that you're going against. Revitalized, I think it's still there's a lot of diversity between the W on the Nature Staff now. So there's Revitalize, or there's Cleanse, and then there's forgot what the other one's called. Protection something. It's the Shield. So you really have a lot of choices between each one of them, and I haven't even found out myself which is the best option to use in what scenario. But all of them are really good right now. The base tier Nature Staff, I think, is pretty underrated right now. It's has no energy problems. Heals are pretty strong. I don't have a high tier Nature Staff myself. The base tier is tier 5, and it seems like I can do pretty strong heals with healing bonuses on light armor. And if you got this thing up high tier, I think this is something that could be really viable in GVGs over the 0.3 nature line, in my opinion. Some may think otherwise, but yeah, I just think it'll be like that because Circle of Life, the cooldown reduced from 30 seconds to 10 seconds. That's huge. The heal per tick increased by 7%. The number of heal ticks reduced from 10 to 7. That's not that bad, just because of how often you can use the spell now. Because it's not actually going to be 10 seconds once you add in all of your cooldown reduction. And energy reduced from 19 to 14. So all really, really good things. They reworked the Great Nature Staff. I still don't think it's worth taking, just because you lose out on the AoE heal. So that staff, I think they need to work on it a bit more, find out what they want to do with it, because it's not a viable option still. But all around, nature staff in a really good spot right now. You'll see it a lot more in GVGs, that's for sure.
Okay, and real quick, I would like to welcome Kelty. I totally forgot we brought him in. How are you doing, Kelty?
I'm pretty good.
Okay, good to hear. And about nature staffs, Hannibal wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, so y'all didn't get to see this happen before the podcast started, but I literally saw Klein spam with the 0.1 nature staff for 5 minutes, spam all his spells, not even come close to running out of mana. It's absolutely insane, the mana costs right now on the 0.1 nature staff. You'll see a lot more of those in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah, I can spam all my spells right here, and it makes absolutely no difference.
Yeah, those might be low. Okay, so now another massive change, something a lot of people were actually pretty disappointed about, was the spear tree. So Phytes is gonna give us some insight on that.
Yeah, so the spear tree was the gatherer's, like, I don't even know what you want to call it. It was just, if you were a gatherer in red zones or black zones, you went with the spear. Because you had a dash, you had movement, you had slows. And a lot of them are really unhappy because they're having a hard time killing mobs right now. So like getting around dire boars and dire wolves, they're having a very hard time killing those mobs because of the Q rework. You stack, like, it doesn't do what the tooltips describe, and it can be very frustrating as someone, just any new player playing the game, or anyone that's just playing the game in general that's experienced. And the tooltip states that you self-buff that increases auto attack range, and auto attacks also apply slows, can be stacked up to 3 times. Hearing that, you would expect that you can stack up a debuff on a mob 3 times. However, you stack a friendly buff on yourself 3 times, but it doesn't stack the slow, so you still only slow for 6%. And in my opinion, it's very frustrating. It's very buggy. Your auto attack range is by far the highest out of any weapon in the game right now, which is ridiculous. You can get it up to, I think it's 11 meters fully stacked, and you're just attacking kids off the screen. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But in my opinion, they broke that weapon. They need to revert the changes. But I don't know. I'm not happy with it. I know a lot of people that were roaming with the halberd are not happy with it, and I know a lot of gatherers are not happy with it right now. I would say by far the worst change in the patch right now for a weapon. Just a personal opinion. If anyone else has any input on that, go ahead and jump in.
Anybody wanted to talk about the spear tree?
Well, not specifically the spear, but when you mentioned the tooltips not saying the right thing, I think that's also a major issue going across the entire Destiny board. Just the tooltips not describing the spells right, and it's a bit frustrating. So that's definitely something that they need to work on.
Yeah, I think as the beta progresses, that more and more of those will get beyond level. If anyone was here for like I think it was the first alpha where it was impossible to read. You have to actually have to trial every weapon to understand how it works. But overall the game's gone a lot better for that direction. You just gotta be patient to get all the changes. But it's something they should definitely be looking at.
Alrighty, so now we will have Hawk talk about the sword tree. Probably one of the most uninteresting and unused, but still,
Wow.
still, I'm sure everybody's really excited.
Man, I know a guy in the guild that loves, not the swords, but he's like the biggest fanboy of the Claymore, and he loves the Claymore. But in terms of the sword, the heroic strike damage got reduced by 7%, but it does give you 3 stacks for movement speed. The cleave entry cost increased from 4 to 5. Damage increased by 11%, which is good. The mighty blow is a new spell for the broadsword. It gets its E. Before it had, let me check. The broadsword had a different spell for the E. The broadsword had Iron Will, which increases your movement speed by 44% and gives you armor and magic resist, which is also good. So and also the fling, which is on the glaive, energy cost reduced from 18 to 50, and now scales with the heroic strike. So if you have 3 stacks on your Q with the glaive, and you use your E, then that determines how far you can like fling someone. and it also consumes like all of it. In terms of the claymore and just the sword tree in general, I think it got a buff because the claymore and the sword tree was pretty useless, and since the scythe E kind of got a nerf. I think most people, which was what I'm seeing from the not like the big guilds, but like the smaller guilds, they're using like heavy and they're replacing the scythe with the claymore. And I think it's probably a good switch, but I don't think the claymore is gonna outdamage the scythe in the long haul at the higher tiers. But for like, I guess for people that just want to use the claymore because they think it's a good weapon or they just like how it looks, it's still a good weapon for PvE, maybe for duels. But in terms of GVG, I don't think it's gonna be that useful, and I don't think it's viable to switch it out for a scythe. But I think it got like a little buff. In terms of the 3 stacks for the Q, you can stick onto someone, and then you can use your E, it's your swing, and then you do increase damage based on how many stacks you have in the Q. It's all kind of like the curse staff with the Vile Curse, and then you use your E, and then you do the pop damage. But I think it got like a little buff. But yeah, but that's all for the Claymore or the Sword Tree.
And something we totally forgot to brush up on was the .1 dagger. I'm totally just kidding. Actually, we're done with the weapons. We are now officially done with the weapons and skill, armor, etc. Portion. Oh wait, actually, I'm sorry. I totally messed that up. We actually do have to talk about 2 more things. The Dreamhawk, you want to weigh in on the flea?
Oh, the flea.
Now.
Yeah, the flea got a huge buff for the gatherers that like usually if you're in Hawthorne and you get ganked, like I see some people getting ganked by Van B and because they're on the Ox and he dismounts you. Well, now you have the flea, and it doesn't make you slow. It's not like you get dismounted and you can't move. You're overloaded. The flea ignores all your loads and everything, so now you can just run away, and it got increased from 80% to 120%. And it ignores overload for the duration of the spell. So as long as you're sprinting, you're gonna be ignoring your overload cost on your inventory. So it's really good for gatherers, I think. And as Phytes was saying about the guys with the spear, and usually when they're gathering like in the black and red zones, and sometimes they get ganked. I think it's pretty viable to take the flea on you if you're only solely just going for like gathering materials, not for like if you're just gonna roam and do some PvE. If you're doing PvE, I think you should still take like the other sprints, like rejuvenating sprint or like just the normal run. But in terms of just gathering mats, it's best to take the flea because you can pretty much guarantee to run away. And if you have like a medium helmet, you can use the stance and your speed just goes crazy. So I think it's got a huge buff. For gatherers though, not for like people that do PvP.
I have to agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, really, really good change. I mean, this very much made Blackstone farming for soul players viable again.
All you're
And
gonna
I
see is
mean
a
also
playing Dire Bear.
transporting gear to GVG, to and from GVGs. I've been seeing it used a lot. I actually saw it used today to escape from me. But yeah, I think it's great that it ignores overload, although I do think it's a little too fast and for a little too long. But that's just my opinion, and we will be hearing from Torx about the medium chest.
Oh, aka the exploit chest, boys.
Yes.
You already know.
Yes.
The buggiest piece of gear.
The buggiest
Exploit
piece
chest.
of gear ever.
In the game.
So, yeah, the medium chest, right? Most of the people who were going to use it, including myself, did not even intend to come close to finding out that this thing is so broken. Like, I personally came into the game thinking, dude, this gives me stealth. I could go around, sprint, and end up in the back line and just end up blizzarding right behind them. Then I realized, oh wait, it also gets me out of stuns? Oh what? It also negates all damage? What?
Yep.
It makes my blizzard invisible? Like, what kind of... This is straight up broken. This is one of the
Yeah, it
most
still
broken
is.
pieces of chest ever. Not only is it viable to a point where it gives you great defense, so it's a reliable source of resistance and damage trade, but at the same time, it has such versatility. So let's say you don't go with stealth. Let's say you go with something like a damage reduction. Enfeeble, you're able to destroy people's burst. Like, let's say you're going against a comp with heavy burst. Just run into them, caster Enfeeble, its range is huge to a point where it will just decrease everybody's damage by 50%. I know it did get a nerf, so it's now 30%, I believe, or it got a 30% nerf. I forget which one it is.
That nerf got reverted. It's still the same.
Oh, it's still the same? Yeah, so it's still pretty broken. Like, the fact that you could just deny burst comps with a medium chest is huge. And then lastly, you have, again, the stealth, and what was the other skill on it? Let me check real quick. The slow. I think that's one of the more underwhelming ones, because I was actually trying to run that as a skill when came open, or when what we're playing right now, because this was my plan, to Q somebody, to W somebody, and then cast Blizzard, and if they didn't get hit by my Blizzard, I will cast the Trembling Aura to slow them down. So when I found out that it was pretty much under your feet and you had to be within melee range for that to take effect, it was pretty underwhelming, and almost anybody who uses it, I feel like Enfeeble and Stealth are just much better counterparts to using it. But again, I feel like it's a really broken chest. Is by far one of the more powerful ones. I compare it even to the Cleanse helmet last alpha, which just made you immune. It has similar comparison to that.
Broken. Just
It's all
mount
about
up
that
and run
medium
away.
chest life.
Well, that's the thing too. They still haven't fixed the whole stealth mount, where you could just stealth and then mount up and just dip set.
That's why
Yeah.
that's why I rerolled on my other character to medium, because I'm tired of getting ganked, man. I just had to escape, so I just, whenever someone like use a warbow stun, I just instantly just press my invis, mount up, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that really needs to be fixed just by not allowing players to mount up in combat.
But what I
That
really
should-
want them
should
to
not be a
fix.
thing.
Break the invisibility when you try and mount.
Exactly. So for example, Dream Mob here, cast the exploding dot on the thing that it just explodes. Like, this is what I don't understand about the stealth test, that it gives you a second of immunity, and that's broken. Like, how is that even possible? You know what I mean? You could dodge things like meteors, like something like this. Boom, 0 damage. You did 0 damage for your what's it called? The exploding thing. It's just things like that it's just, wow, this just is broken, and it kills me that it's broken, because it's such a fun chest to use,
I mean, let's be real. If there was no blink on the light chest, everyone would use the medium chest. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Completely
I mean,
agree.
yeah.
But you have instances where the blink bugs out, and it does a displacement bug where your character is still logged at the position where you blinked from, and you'll take any effect that was on that area. So let's say a meteor was there and you blinked out of it, you still take the meteor's damage. You'll still take the debuff from the curse. You'll still take the blizzard, despite the fact that you're not physically there. The game still reads that you're still there.
Even
Or
when
server lag.
like I've seen when I've been like solo ganking with the claws, and I get someone and I root them and they blink away, I still have them in the root even though they're like farther away from me.
Exactly.
Which I think is pretty broken.
Yep. There's just little
Okay.
fixes like that will make or break the chess pieces of the game right now.
Well, we got to keep moving so we can talk about our big three, and we can answer viewer questions. So, Phytes, do you want to talk about the heavy chest? I mean, I'm pretty sure. it's
Yeah,
pretty
real quick,
fast.
just the duration got changed from 5 seconds to 4 seconds on the root prison. Not a big deal. Don't go dropping it in your GVG groups for the cleanse. You're still going to want to run that root prison. It just feels like if you do get caught in that root prison, you're not going to be punished as much as you would have if it were still 5 seconds. So I think it's a good tone down. But yeah, definitely if you're running your heavy chest, don't drop that in your GVG group just yet. If you see that to a 2.5 second duration, maybe think about dropping it. But for now, you're still sitting good on it.
All right, and Phytes, did you want to go ahead and talk about spell disruption and everything that brings with it?
Oh yeah. So if you all watched earlier, Trinket used the Infernal Staff and put the dot on me that Torx has on himself right now. It used to be if you had that dot, you could not get a cast off whatsoever because the spell interruption and pushback was just too much. There was no diminishing return on it. It just instantly just pushed your cast back. As soon as you got to a quarter through, it just pushed you back to your beginning, and there's no way you could get it off. Same thing happened with Vile Curse dots, drain spells. So that just got toned down a lot this patch. Very helpful for casters, especially Holy Priests. So that was a nice change to see in this patch. And then, what was the other change to him?
It was the max number of.
Oh yeah,
points for
so
AoE
that just helped Nature Staff and Holy Staff with the AoE heals. So that was nice to see. And the cleanses, which if you get a 5-man cleanse, fucking kudos. You're not going to see too much of those in GVGs, but in open world, that'd be pretty nice. Get people out of Warbow stuns, get them out of root prisons. But yeah, just some nice changes. Nothing too overpowered. Nothing crazy.
All right. Well, now we're going to be answering viewer questions. If you guys are on Twitch watching right now, please ask some questions. We'll get to them as fast as possible. Actually, our first question is going to go to Kelty, which I just have to ask you real fast. How much money have you spent re-rolling that armor? Re-rolling 6/6 to legendary and epic, isn't it like 15k a roll?
Hey, he has legendary.
The staff is 12k a reroll.
Jesus.
I
All right.
spent probably near 10 mil trying to reroll this staff to legendary, and it still hasn't happened.
Struggles.
Rip. The struggles are real.
So a viewer asked, would you advise going up? You know, obviously, I mean, you did, but would you advise going past the 4.3 Arcane? Is it a big enough change to warrant the
I would have
spent?
said yes before this recent patch, but since they're forcing you to use the shield on your Q instead of Frazzle, you don't get the extra damage, which was good for pressure against healers and stuff in GVGs. So I don't think leveling up the staff is viable anymore, because absolutely nothing scales, and that shield still remains completely useless.
Okay, and now we're actually going to be answering the rest of our questions, and these everybody here can weigh in on. Our first question, or well, I guess our second question, will be, how do you guys feel about the current state of war camps? Is it right to attack your own plots? Is it simply clever use of mechanics? Do war camps need a rework? And how would we, as a cast, rework them?
So sort. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, whoever wants to go first, Torx.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest with you, I would say with the current meta, how the current mechanics that are implemented, attacking your own plots and locking them down is super essential, especially if you want to encourage expansion of guilds. It's to a point where if you come from a small guild and you don't, or even if you're in a big guild and don't have a lot of peers in your group, in your guild, you want to maintain the territories you have. But the fact that if somebody constantly attacks you, locks your PvPers, or at least your good PvPers, down to a plot, it leaves no room for expansion, and you get this scenarios where guilds are stuck in certain areas because they are near war camps, or they're constantly having to put their best PvPers or most of their resources to this maintaining their own lands, opposed to being able to expand. So if they took out that mechanic, I would say it 100% be able to not be able to block camps, because you will free up the availability of people.
But I think your question is like, it's kind of a moral dilemma. Attacking your own plots it seems like on one side you got, like you're fighting a bunch of useless GVDs that you don't deem are useless. However, on the other side you have guilds that are smaller that want a chance to have those plots for there. Is it wrong to deny them that? Do they have to fight over the war camp, an open world event, to decide a 5v5? Is that right in current standing of the game?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, it's really kind of simple, right? Like every guild out there can go to a war camp and can launch an attack. You can launch an attack from another continent. You can launch an attack from another coast. It doesn't matter. The big issue here is the barrier of entry. The barrier of entry for someone to wage an attack is too low. So then you do have these guilds that, they hold territory, but unfortunate for them, they happen to be next to a war camp. If you look around the world, not every top-tier territory, especially, for example, looking at black zones, are anywhere near war camps. Some black zones don't even have war camps in the route to them. Some are like 6+ hops away from a war camp. Those guys are so well embedded, they don't have to even think about the constant attack. And when you look at the forums, you look at what other players in the community say about it. It's the haves and the have-nots, right? The people that are in city guilds, the people that don't have territory, they want to attack. They want to get out. They want a chance. The problem is the mechanic is broken, and because anyone can launch any number of attacks, you have the guilds that want to do more than defend the same one territory all test. And they've resorted to this. They've resorted to attacking themselves with alts so that they can go out. The equalizer that Korn, one of the developers, mentioned was, listen, if you don't like guilds attacking themselves, you know what you do? You go out to the war camp a little early, you stake it out, you lock it down, and you launch that attack that you want. That's the balance. I mean, it's open world PvP. You want the war camp? Take it.
So, just to reiterate, you think that that's currently a good mechanic in the game as long as the cost of entry increases, correct?
I say either the cost of entry has to increase, that barrier has to go up. You cannot have people constantly waging attacks again and again. You have to think, right? One guild, for example, our guild, we have a guild that constantly wages attacks on us. We have two guilds that just all they do all day, their whole test is just to simply feed us gear. All they want to do is constantly fight us. And listen, I'll be fair. Let's be fair. They lose 80% of the time, 80-something% of the time, right? Every time. And they keep doing it. It doesn't cost them any money. It doesn't cost them any food. There's no cooldown on it. They just do it just because that's all they can do. But for our guild, for our guys, we're stuck fighting in the same territory day after day. I personally think that war camps don't have a place in even red zones. I think that the way the map is laid out is wrong. I'd like to see war camps there. I'd like to see them maybe stuck in yellow zones as like a launching point, a jumping off point, so the guilds can work from yellow where the the combat has a cap, kind of like a gear cap, a skill cap almost. And it evens out the playing field, and then from there, you would work your way out to the red and to the black. But the placement of some of these war camps are questionable, and I mean, it is a test. So I think that's probably why it's like that, and they wanted to see what the outcome was going to be. But this barrier of entry thing, like, the cost is just far too low. So as it is right now, I think the guilds have to do what they have to do, to enjoy the test as best that they can. And if somebody wants to take the war camp and launch an attack, then I think they should meet him out there.
We just had a really cool suggestion from one of our viewers who actually said that war camps just spawn randomly across the map and to change every single week. Do you think that would be a good fix to the problem?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be dope.
That would be very
That's
interesting.
actually the best idea I've heard.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Best fix to the current system.
Would you want them, I mean, overall with how the zone layout is, would you want war camps ever in black zones? Do you think that should ever be a thing? Personally, I think black zone should be something to work for, and to get to, you should move from war camps. So I'd be perfectly fine with spawning war camps just all throughout. Currently, with how it is yellow and red zones.
Yeah, I mean, I like this idea. If we're talking about this dynamic moving war camp thing, I like that. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, sure. Everybody should be eligible to be under attack. But, I really take issue with the way the map's laid out. I think it should drastically change. I think that's a good suggestion. And I think if that was the case, yes. But I think as it is now, probably not.
All right, so with that, let's actually keep on the ball and let's keep moving. Our next question is from Vinegar Strokes. Question for crafters. Do you think the fame requirements to advance crafting were lowered too much? Would you rather have people more specialized in what they can craft, or is it jack of all trades in this current game state acceptable? And Hannibal, let's hear from you first.
I'll go first. I think that he hit the nail on the head. They overdid it way too much, and it's so easy to make the jack of all trades now. When the test first started out, you had to spend an entire character just to refine a 0.2 line of one particular resource. Now you can do every single resource, every single weapon. You can actually be done on the same account. When it comes to crafting and resource gathering and refining, LP is almost meaningless now. The only thing LP is basically for now is weapons.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and let's hear from Torch next.
Yeah, so I mean, like Hannah will say, hidden right on the head, and it's just I feel like this whole alpha has catered more to gatherers and PvPers, to the point where crafters have been left out in the dirt. Because if you think about it, most people are spending all their silver in either re-rolling, buying the mats to make their gear, and just overall resources. So when it comes down to it, if you're seeing where the input of all these gear is coming from, since there's so much PvP going on, most people just sell the items that they give and undercut the actual crafters by a whole bunch. And like Demon Ender said earlier, this just causes a lot of drops in prices, and it's all about the flavor of the month kind of deal. So when the Scythe was pretty OP, which it still is, you saw prices on Scythes just skyrocket from the crafters, but then it got really it dropped significantly because since so many people were rolling out with scythes and axes, there was an oversaturation of those items constantly on the market. So in order to make some profit, people would constantly undercutting other people. That's how I feel like the current state of crafters is at the moment.
Okay, and now we will hear from Vortek. Did you want to weigh in on this? Vortek, you there? Alright, we will...
Rip.
Oh, okay, I got
He's
you.
back.
Remember,
She's
I'm on
back.
my phone, man.
Oh, that's fun.
Nah, man, I'm...
Yeah, he's gonna cut off. Ripperinos!
Alright.
Guys, rip.
So we will actually move on to our next question. What do you guys think about the planned changes to disenchanting items for crafting experience?
Oh snap! That's pretty.
You guys remember they
I
were
don't-
saying you could basically take crafted items and destroy them for fame.
I think
it's
they're gonna have
consumable.
to. I think they're gonna have to make crafting harder again.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
refining and all
exactly.
that. It's gonna need to require more fame and more effort.
So the idea here with the consumable stuff, it wasn't so much that it was for fame, it was an economy balance. It was to take all the excess gear out of the economy. So for anybody that's crafted it, you know, for example, pots or even food, you know, you're crafting. You were before the last change, when it finally caught up with other crafting, you were crafting hundreds of items that you literally had nowhere to put. I mean, with the pots, for example, I was committing suicide just to get rid of them because the stacks of 5 were killing me, moving them back and forth. It was just easier to kill yourself with the stuff than it was to try to place it in a chest. We had potions everywhere, you know, for members in the guild. So the idea here is that you're going to trade the items to an NPC or to you know, a mission giver, and you know, that's going to be how you get your fame. I don't know.
Alright, Phytes, what were you saying about?
I was just gonna say that I think crafting is way too easy at this point because from what I've seen is every time someone re-rolls a weapon, like I'll take myself for example, I've re-rolled 4 or 5 times, and 3 weeks ago or so I re-rolled to the 0.3 curse staff, and I knew I was gonna be the only player on the server that was gonna get to 6.3 or higher, and I knew there was gonna be no one crafting that weapon, so I pretty much was gonna be forced to craft that weapon. However, it was so easy to do. All I had to do was just buy mats. I think I spent maybe close to 2 or 3 mil to power level up to 8.3. And to be able to just make that happen within 2 or 3 hours time, because there was no capping me, because I could spend LP, I could do it on an alt, I could, you know, just buy all the materials, and it was super simple. I had no problems. Like, there was nothing keeping me from progressing my combat because I could just easily power level through. And what you saw with all these fame reworks is when something became easier to make, like food, for example, cabbage soups and omelets, when it became a lot easier to make, you saw the prices drop 200, 300% because people were like, oh, wow, you can make a lot of money doing this, and I can power level it in 4 hours time. So what's stopping me from making this money? And then people did it, and then the next day, after a patch drop, prices were down 200%. It's a joke, honestly. It's a joke right now.
Alright, and Klein?
I just wanted to mention that getting back to the disenchanting, if they really want to put something like that in the game, then they're going to have to do exactly what we're talking about and fix this whole crafting situation. They have to make it more difficult if they want to put in another feature that's going to make it even easier for you to get higher.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and Vortec, do you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, with the fame thing, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's about making it easier. I think it's the alternative. So you're going to be getting the same fame. It's just, again, taking the item out of the economy, taking it out of the inventory. It's basically you craft to advance, and then you craft to make gear that is usable for other people. There is no longer that overlap. The thing I wanted to comment on was the point Phytes was making about the other topic that we were talking about when what was it, the ease of leveling. And I just wanted to talk about it from a guild management perspective. At the beginning of the test, you know, everybody specialized in something, and the guilds that really succeeded were the ones that were able to manage that and focus that energy and focus their you know, dedicated people. Obviously some guilds had alt characters and things like that, but other guilds were able to manage their people and keep people focused. And the second that limitation came off, that's when really the wheels started to come off, and everybody, it was kind of a free-for-all, a mad dash. All of a sudden everybody could level everything in a matter of days, and everybody suddenly became self-sufficient, more so than I think we've ever seen in any test. I mean, you've always been somewhat self-sufficient, but never before we've seen all things refined, almost anything you need crafted and more. Because really at this point, learning points are nothing more than a tier 3, tier 4 push, because tier 4 is so different than everything else. You know, all the other tiers, once you get over 4, it becomes so much easier. But from a management perspective, by them lowering that barrier of entry, making it so much easier for everyone to craft, it really became kind of a free-for-all, and I think I'd like to see us go back to something in the middle, something where, yeah, people still have to specialize, but it's not as much like what Hannibal mentioned, where one character had to just solely go up the 0.2 tree. I think there should be a little more variety in a character, a little more freedom than that.
Okay, well that's a good point. So we're actually going to be moving on, I guess away from viewer questions because we have run out. But Safiana, I was hoping you're still awake. Hopefully. I know. Safiana, you here? It appears she has fallen asleep.
He was just typing in Discord a second ago. So you were saying.
Oh, okay. We can get back to that in a second. I was going to ask her about the white pipe. But how do you guys feel about the current, I'd say one of the biggest problems in the game is the lack of T7 content.
Yes, I agree.
And the fact that with this Brutus patch, they added more T6, I apologize, T6 content, but they haven't added T7 content. And I would say roughly a majority of the server, 60%, 70%, are at the point where level up, they need to have that T7 content. And it has actually become so scarce and so frustrating to farm. I think we've been seeing a lot of players quit, a lot of players leave, a lot of players stop because of this. So how do you guys feel about that? Dream, you can go first.
Alright, I like 100% agree with you, because as like a hardcore player, and like when you get when you get to like enchanted, let's say you get to 0.3 enchanted, or say one hand enchanted, and you can use 7.3 gear, you're basically at end game, right? All you have to do right now is just farm up to get like 8.3 and then enchanted 7.3 and so on and so forth. And right now it's like almost impossible to do that, because if you go to a dungeon or like a black zone, it's impossible to farm, because people are always farming it, and the dungeons are always empty, and if you go there you might get ganked and die, and there's just not a lot of black zones. I think there's like, what, 20 black zones in all, like for both sides?
There's 18.
Yeah, 18 black. That's not a lot for like the population is pretty high, and people are already reaching endgame. The game's been out for like about 2 months now, or past 2 months, and I think that I don't know why they put more tier 6 contests. Maybe it's for like maybe the casual gamers or the people that just play on and off, and they want them to catch up and see how many people can get to 6.3. And really, it's really pretty easy to get 6.3. I got 6.3 in like 2 or 3 days with a brand new character. It's just that people that are end game and they are 7.3, they really have nothing else to do but to farm. And there's no tiers like 7 Hellgates where they can say, okay, I don't have to go to a black zone and just farm like the pockets or do the dungeons. I can just wait for a Hellgate, go to the Hellgate, get some gems and runes, and get some PvP and get a lot of fame towards my gear. But right now it's like extremely scarce. If you go into like Hollow Soul on the east continent, where the big there's like the end game dungeon, or Hollow Heart on the west continent, it's like you go there and there's just groups of like 20, maybe 20 plus. Last time I went there with like my character just to farm like solo, and then I got zerged by a 40-man group. Like it's impossible to farm up, man. And I think the devs really need to add more tier 7 content if they want to keep some players. Because right now I'm not playing how I used to play. I'll play for like 2 or 3 hours a day, and that's mostly just to get on, see if you have any GVGs, or like just to like probably farm like for like an hour and get like what 10k fame. That's not even anything. That's what I think. I think they need to add more tier 7 content for sure. If they want their like hardcore players to like just stick to the game.
Yeah, it's become too difficult. All right, Torx, you're up.
Yeah, so he pretty much said the magic word, and it was a tier 7 Hellgates. Like, we need to get this stuff rolling, because I feel Hellgates is one of the best, and I mean best, parts of Albion Online. The fact that you could do organized PvP with any of your clan mates or guild mates, and be able to organize something like that without having to queue for a GVG or having to prep for a GVG. And it's just, fast, easy, and very, very enriching for the whole guild as it is. And like you said, when it comes down to the tier 7 contact lacking, you have it to a point where if SI is trying to cater to these newer guys and the people who are trying to come in and trying to grow the community as a whole, they're taking a bad, I don't want to say bad, but like the wrong approach to it, where they're adding a lot lower tier content. Because if you think about it, who's mostly in the black zone? All of us who are in top guilds, who are in heavy activity guilds, who have big presence in the game already as it is. And if people who are barely coming into the game don't have access to this, or don't want to be in a guild per se, in a big guild, and want to start their own thing with their friends, they won't have access. They'll be capped in a sense to their tier 6.3, to their 8.2s, and stuff like that, because they wouldn't have the manpower or the edge, I would say, as some of the other guilds have already experienced. So it's to a point where the people who are able to be in the black zones for an extended amount of time have created this curve where there's far enough to a point where, yeah, gear doesn't really make a difference, that much of a difference as it did in this patch, but players are getting to a point where they're at such high level gear that people can't contest some of the black zones at this given time.
Okay, and now Climb.
Okay, so I almost think the reasoning behind making the new content tier 6 was to kind of use it as a testing ground. That's the only way I can kind of think of it, is because I don't think that they wanted to instantly just put this in tier 7, had the numbers wrong, and had everyone just boosted out to God knows what tier. I think that's my personal opinion on it, because right when those things came out, you could go in them, you could get, 50,000 fame or more with the 5 people dungeons. So, like you saw right after the first day, they did some balancing, some tweaking with the mobs inside of it. Things are going well, everyone loves these new dungeons, they think it's great. The 2-player ones is it's not as great because they're not veteran mobs, but it's still something nice to do. They're providing more activity for group play, which I think is a lot better for the game rather than people going around solo farming or duo farming, which isn't really that viable. So I think, yeah, they're taking things step by step, it looks like. Since you saw tier 4 Hellgates turn to tier 5, and we have tier 6 and tier 7 Hellgates, they're coming, but it looks like they're really trying to balance the numbers before they push things out too fast and kind of break the system. For example, when we first saw the Destiny board changes and everyone just kind of flew up a tier or two, that kind of twisted the game around a little bit. So I think they're trying to avoid something big like that before putting more Tier 7 content in, as much as we want it to happen right now.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, well, Fight wanted to talk about T7 Hellgates.
Well, I want to talk about something that Klein just brought up, and I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you about them not wanting to rush into producing more T7 content because they don't want to break a system. Their system's already broken at this point. The fame jumps that have occurred already. The issue right now is I don't know what percentage of the game is in that needs tier 7, but it's a very high percentage of the player base right now that needs tier 7 to progress. And right now, they're going to lose the current player base that they have that are still playing this test if they don't put out T7 content. I mean, it's going to happen. They either need to add more zones, they need to add more abilities to get tier 7 content, or they're going to see a drastic drop in their player base. I think it's going to happen. And the only way that I've contemplated over the past couple of days of whether or not I really want to take a hardcore break on this game because doing dungeons is getting repetitive at this point, and if I can't go into Hellgates and just go in with a group of 5 and take in and try out new GVG teams in these Hellgates and just work out new comps, I need T7 Hellgates. Honestly, I need them.
Yeah, no, I think we all do. I mean, for those of us that played the last test where Hellgates were absolutely essential. You needed them for 4.3 gear. I mean, we had that in the first week.
Oh,
and it was absolutely necessary.
Right.
The ninja nerf, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, in Hellgates, the mobs are no longer veterans, they are elites.
Yep.
So drastic fame drop to even new players right now that are trying to progress into tier 6. Yeah.
But they did bring the new PvE content, so I don't think it's that hard to get to 6.3 but at the same time it is in the red zone, right? And they might die if they go there, but I think the devs add a fairly decent amount of tier 6 content for like the newer players or the people that are not at 7.3 at the moment. I think it's fairly easy to get there into like a week of just playing maybe 2-3 hours a day of just purely grinding though, not like moving around the city or like gathering. You need to just be grinding for 2-3 hours, because if not, you're not going to get to the higher tiers with only the tier 6 content that they added. But I think it's fairly easy though. I don't think it's that difficult for people to do that jump to 6.3. But as everybody was saying, to get to 7.3, we really need the tier 7 Hellgates. And as Demon Ender was saying, or Phytes, if you guys want to call them, if people want to try it, like if you say you did a GVG and you're on like that 24-hour cooldown, and you really want to try a new setup, and nobody wants to go to like a tier 5 Hellgate because all your opponents are just going to be under gear, and there's no point. You're just going to be wasting your time. And you don't want to go there just to get souls. You can just go on the market and buy it. But if you have tier 7 Hellgates, you have more fame. People are going to go there with like tier 6.3 and 7.3, so you know for sure you're getting good gear. And you're also going to have like good setups if you want to try new things out there. So I think the top priority right now for the devs is just to bring out tier 7 content for the population that's already at endgame.
Yeah, I think that's just absolutely necessary.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was actually going to say we actually need to be wrapping up soon for the next 5 minutes. I wanted to ask one more question to Safiana. Safiana, are you back?
I think so.
Oh, okay, awesome. For anybody that just got here, Safiana is a player moderator for the forums. Now, I was wondering, how do you feel about how Sandbox has dealt with the wipe hype, the quote-unquote wipe hype? How they've, because we've had multiple, been told multiple things by various people about the wipe hype, and a lot of people won't play because they don't know if it's coming. What do you think Sandbox should do to, basically inform the community?
I'd like to see them give us a time frame. With it being up in the air, it does cause a lot. A lot of people get out there and you'll hear it, wipe tonight, wipe tomorrow, wipe here. And it's frustrating as a moderator to sit there and try and counteract that because, if I say in global that, they're lying, then immediately it jumps into wipe hype, wipe hype. So it's a vicious circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel they need to take a stance and they need to do it soon. Because I do know a lot of people, or, some people in Aegis that have stopped playing. Some people like Lax is standing right here, won't play until changes to the game are made, or at least the wipes announced, etc. And I mean, I think they've done a terrible job with how they've actually gone about talking about the wipe. I mean, Korn apparently posted about it, and then I heard somewhere else that moderators were considering not even wiping until the end of the test, whereas we were told separate times there would be a wipe halfway through.
Right, and I have not seen anything about a non-wipe. I'm still, everything that I've heard has been that they're still planning on having a wipe somewhere in, somewhere before the, mid-closed beta, we'll call it that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, did anybody have anything else they wanted to talk
Look
about?
at the X's, bro.
Oh, I'm sorry. I lost the X's. Alright, Torx, you can talk.
Yeah, no, so this is in regards to the wipe. I feel like SI just went about the whole wipe hype and all this stuff way wrong about it, because if they were going to announce some type of wipe, they have to let it be to a point where it's happening soon or not later, because it lowers a lot of the morale of the people, because I myself thinking, why am I going to continue to play at the current stage if the game is becoming progressively harder to get any type of progression, since the end content is just non-existent, and B, if everything is going to get wiped, why should I continue if all my efforts are just going to go down the drain? You know what I mean? So this is discouraging a lot of the bigger guilds, a lot of the smaller guilds too, because since everybody's talking about wipe hype constantly, it falls back to the thing, well, if wipe is coming, why even try? And that's the biggest issue that I have with it. So if they would have announced it like a week before, it would have been great, because people would have just been out there fighting constantly, and it would have gave the game a reboot in a sense before even wiping it, because people will just be more active, trying to get as much as they can out of it before it's wiped again and get everybody prepared. But now, since they're not giving a specific date and they're delaying it so much, it's hurting the game more than it's actually helping it.
Right, and I can definitely see your point. What I can say is feedback is important. I mean, we're now getting players to places that we've never reached in any of the closed alphas, and so definitely as players hit these higher tier equipments, we need feedback on balancing. We need feedback on skills that do or don't work as advertised, and I think that's part of the reason why there hasn't been a wipe. Again, this is my own opinion, and it's not based on anything that I've heard. But it makes sense to me that we need to let players progress as far as they can, so that we can get as much feedback on these weapons as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say one thing real fast. If they make any big content changes, like there was in the same patch, I think that's what warrants a wipe. I'm actually not in favor of a wipe until they either add a bunch of black zones. If they do make that change about adding a bunch of black zones, I think there should be a wipe, just because you don't want the land grab that happened last alpha when they were introduced. And B, I think I want the wipe to happen on a significant patch. I don't think Brutus was that patch, but possibly the next patch will be the significant patch. So I kind of see where SBI stands on there. I do agree there's going to be a need of wipe very soon in terms of keeping the player base.
Yeah, I completely agree with Hannibal. That's something I was going to bring up, and I think I've seen Korn post it somewhere, I believe, where I've been saying this for weeks. There is no point of them doing a wipe right now, next couple of weeks, or even before when people were talking about the Brutus patch. There's no point of wiping now, because we're going to be playing the same exact game. We're going to be testing the same exact thing that we already know and there's no point. You know, we need a big change to happen. We need that Destiny board change, a map change, something that we're hoping will come in the next patch, and that will warrant the wipe, and that will make it worth it to test new things. But for now, there's no point of wiping right now. There's literally no point to it.
Yeah, they should have wiped when they made the Fane changes, but now I don't think there's a point.
Exactly, they missed that window of opportunity.
Yeah, they missed the opportunity, but I think that they can recover from it when they add. I think the next needs a wipe, 100%. Next content patch should add new either should add tier 7 Hellgates, or B, add more tier 7 stones.
Yeah, for me, like the reason I'm staying to Albion is because I'm just dedicated to the game. But like apart from that, if like for me as a player personally, they need to add more content, because otherwise I'm probably just gonna skip from. I started off for like 10 hours a day to like 5 to 4 hours a day. Now I'm slowly going down to 2 or 3 hours a day, just because there's not really much to do in the game anymore. I'll come on and I'll just go outside and just farm tier 7 mobs that's already been farmed, or it's just empty. They really need more content.
We should really cut this podcast short, guys, because we might run out of content for the next podcast.
Yep. So, Phytes, did you want to end this or?
No, I think we hit a lot of great points
with listeners, or no?
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think the biggest thing right now is if they want players to progress into higher tiers of armor, so we can see, you know, maybe more balancing issues. Give us T7 Hellgates. Everyone's going to go crazy. You're going to see market prices are going to increase because items are going to get trashed in Hellgates. Make the mobs veterans and not elite, so if people die, gear gets trashed even more. I think that's going to be the best way to progress players and to influence players to keep playing. That would be my plea to the devs. T7 Hellgates.
Your wish list.
My veteran mobs.
Elite are the ones that kill you, right? Veterans are just the ones that knock you out.
Or yeah. Switch them back to elite.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it should just be Hellgates have the most risk. They should have the most reward. I mean, you're almost guaranteed to fight 5 people there. I mean, it's good. It's a system, and it's the best thing. It's what they need. So, we're actually going to be wrapping this one up. Thank you to everybody that listened. And if you were listening to this live, thank you very much for coming. If you would like to talk on this next time, contact me or Phytes or Hannibal or anybody else that was in here in-game. And we will be able to see if we want to pull you on to talk next week. We will probably be doing this at a different time, a better time. And I hope you guys all have a great time. Thank you for listening.